STIHL 400 CM, 66.7 cc's, 50mm bore by 34mm stroke, incidentally the same as the Husqvarna 266 XP. This particular saw has a ceramic coated magnesium piston, which we will weigh and compare to the Husqvarna 562 XP piston. We'll also compare piston pins and weigh them. We're going to tear this saw down to the crankcase. We're not going to split the cases. We're going to pull the flywheel and weigh it. We're going to take the carburetor off. We're going to take the wiring harness off. We're going to pull it down, pull the cylinder, obviously, to pull the piston. The chain brake will be removed. Oil pumps, we'll talk about them, and 3 different types of clutch cover. Have a look. Thank you for watching. Alright, good evening everybody. We'll entitle this series Inside the STIHL MS400 C. Studying this since its inception, or introduction. I've got it tore down right here. This has been named and claimed as the cleanest chainsaw ever produced, gasoline chainsaw. So we have that to go with. The specs, we'll post the specs in the description. Most everybody knows what they are by now. But looking at this thing, I've got it tore down. I've got the piston here weighing it, and you know what the advertised specs are. This has very low run time. So that's the 400 C piston, 71 grams. And let's compare that to a 562 XP Husqvarna. Now there are no rings on either piston, no pin bearing. We're going to weigh the piston pin also. So 86 grams for your 562. The acceleration of this unit is quite impressive. Let's weigh, just for curiosity, here is an 026 piston, 51 grams. Okay, and we'll weigh the pins. Let's look at the pin. Pretty interesting. It's very thin walled. Very beautiful pin. Let's weigh them. 15 grams. Okay, now let's weigh the 562 pin. 9 grams. It's quite a bit different in diameter. If we look at them, quite a bit of difference there. And then obviously your ring weights. 3 grams for the 562. 400, we'll weigh 1 ring and then both. 2 grams. 2 grams. And the thicknesses of these would be interesting to note. We'll put both rings on there, and I'm keeping track of where they came from. Both rings, 5 grams. Okay, so back to the 562. Remember, both steel rings weigh 5 grams. Okay, the single Husqvarna weighs 3 grams. So that's pretty interesting. See if I can give you a look inside the cylinder. Be patient with me. As you know, sometimes, most of the time, my video is pretty crude. Get things to focus here. And the scientific clamp. Alright, here we go. Might be a little better without the flashlight in it. So, just a look inside there. There had been some commentary on interchangeability, 362 to 400. Notice the flange. And the flange is specific to the cases. So, there'll be some flow issues maybe. I was also surprised that there were no stuffers and no circle crank or something like that. And also another note, I may have already said it, the bearings are made in Japan. And there's a large sticker on the front of the saw that says made in Germany. Okay, assembled in Germany of various components, maybe. The muffler was pretty interesting. It's very open. There is no cage or baffle at the exhaust port. And we see the spark arrestor. Just fold those ears down to change it out or clean it. We see the actual exhaust port in the muffler. Let me get that focus maybe. There we go. So there's some potential for improvement. Also, various components on the saw. Cooling plate, aluminum, pretty interesting. I'm going to pull the flywheel and we'll get some weights on the flywheel. Everything else is pretty much standard steel. If you're used to working on steel products, not too bad to tear it down. A lot of modifying going on right now. There may be a piece or two, a component or two in reassembly, and such as throttle linkage. There's a trick or two there, and then getting the handlebar on and off. I hear a lot of people complaining about that. There's kind of a trick to that, and I'll try to put together a clip about that. Anyway, another note, you've seen in my videos talking about the oil pump on this thing. It is interchangeable with the MS460, MS361, obviously, but the 460, 461, 361, I've got videos about that, about how to make this thing turn out some oil using factory parts. So I think that's about it. The muffler is stainless and it's lightweight. The saw itself is lightweight. I may do some weight comparisons between the captive nuts and then the large clutch cover that's offered also, just to do some weight comparisons there with that. But I guess that's everything that you need to see. The teardown is pretty simple. Go slow, take your time. Alright everybody, I guess that's about it. We'll look at this cylinder one more time. It has the steel casting marks, and I'm sure there'll be various dies and whatnot that cast these. So we'll see different numbers, and we'll probably see, if this production carries on very long, we'll see cylinders that outperform other cylinders in stock form, not to mention what tricks people figure out with them. Another particular note of interest on the 400 I would like to see changed is this multi-piece fuel line. I do not like that. And, there's too much potential for leaks there. I do not like that. But that's just my opinion and an observation. Otherwise, I really like this unit. Alright, hopefully that's coming in good. I'm going to give you a little bit of a view. Something I didn't mention, there is no indentation for a circlips on the drive side of the piston. So keep that in mind. That piston pin has to come out that way. Has to go back in that way. So we're going back in with it right now. Just to show you about various things. So we're bottom dead center. Ease the cylinder down in there. So the brake pin sticks out just a little bit. You'll have to watch out for that as you go down. Alright. Alright, we're all the way down. 4 bolts. It's pretty much straightforward from here on out. When we get to some of the wiring, now there's a trick or two there. I'll show you that when we get to that. But everything is pretty much straightforward on this. About STIHL's line, a lot of the parts interchangeability, something I also didn't mention, the clutch. I did mention the oil pump, but the main bearings, all that is 461, and maybe other models, 461, 460, MS361. So it's a very proven system down there. I have heard of some 362 crank failures, big bearing failures. And this is what this is. It's a 362 bottom end. It would have been interesting, and still may do this eventually, go to crank stuffers or circle crank configuration, something like that in the future. But for right now, something else I wanted to talk about. This STIHL intended this as a power lines clearing saw. It was not intended to be run with a long bar, and that's why that the oiler is like it is. This was intended to be used by clearing crews, according to my sources, and you can disagree with that. Another thing of interest, let me pan you over here, you can almost see it. Leave this on the handlebar, don't take that off, and I'll show you some tricks about going on with the handlebar and just in later. I'm going to try to stick all this video together though, so you can see this all at once. I've got a 034 on the bench right here also, 036, 034. So 036, 034, a 361, the 362 I don't have in the shop. I got a 361 over here, and now the 400. But definitely upgrade the oil pump. I am not satisfied with that at all, even with a 20-inch bar. That's my opinion there again. And I do like that the holes are big enough on the cylinder that the steel T-handle fits down through them. Some of the prior models, the holes were not large enough to use this tool. Alright, I'll bring you back when I think there's something else important. The rubber intake part, the intake itself, pushes through this plastic piece. There's a flange, a lip that goes all the way around that. Make sure you line up on these holes right here. And that lip will punch through. The box lines up. The fuel line is held by this lower corner. And I think we're safe to go ahead and bolt the box down at this point. I left the wiring harness hooked up and just off to the side. The carburetor is unhooked from the wiring harness. And do not pull on anything. You'll mess up your continuity of your wiring. Just be very gentle with all this. Okay. Now when you got your fuel line hooked up, punch the top hose through, and the bottom, if you'll press right here, the pulse line and that passage will pop out. You can just grab a hold of it with your hands and pull it on through. As these saws get older, this is going to be an item that's going to be sold a lot, is the rubber intake, because they will not take repeated disassemblies like this, I do not think. I may be wrong. And in time they'll get hard and they will not be pliable anymore. Sorry, my elbow is right in the way. Okay. And don't anybody panic. This is a dull screwdriver. Okay. I get that a lot. Oh, you're going to have vacuum leaks and fuel leaks. We're in good shape. And obviously your carb plate goes here, like so. I'll bring you back when I see something important. The throttle rod goes up through here, and it rests on the black part of the intake, and then actuates the butterfly like so. So it rests right here on this black piece, and then the lever comes around up in under it and presses the butterfly. Just before you started, this is the configuration of the wiring harness, how it lays. And notice how this is intact. I'm going to show you how to put that back in just a minute. But notice the orientation of everything. The black and red wires from the ignition come through here. The coil wire goes over the top of them. This is inverted. This grommet sits here. We're going to hook up a linkage right here in just a moment. I'm going to show you that, and we're going to set everything in place. Portion of your wiring. We talked about plugging this grommet in, These wires go through here. We plug our carb solenoids back up, and right here, this piece, a shoe tag. You guys know what shoe tags are, right? Sock tags. It goes right there like that, and then you run it all the way through, and we'll grab hold of it on the other side and pull it on through very gently. Trying to keep it in view. Let me set you on a tripod and watch me do it like that. That way I'll have another hand. Maybe if I'm not right in your way. And you may see a big bald head. Just for a moment. Alright, now get you in where you can see that up close. So right here's what we're doing. We put that back in. Alright, got all that wired in. Oh, this goes under this screw right here. It goes right here, and our air filter base bolts up right there. It'll help you. Go ahead and show you that. It's removing this little linkage. And again, pardon my head. Not only does it snap in place, but there's also, I think it's a T10 Torx that holds this in place. Just a moment. Let's go full choke. There we go. Alright, and T10. I'll bring you in and show you the details about this in just a moment. This stuff is intricate, it's small, it's fragile. Just the way things are now. Okay, that gray plastic piece traps the rod where it can't come out. And then this, the T10 screw actually holds that piece in place. So a tree on the carb box area is going to kill this thing in a lot of ways. I'll bring you in closer, you can see that. So when you're disassembling, undo this screw, remove this rod right here, and then things will come apart a lot easier. So notice the wiring. That may be of interest to you as a resource. All right, a CM inside series. We have pulled the clutch, and this is some things about the clutch drum bearing, oiler gears, oil pump. All of this, I've got an in-depth video, or videos plural, on this, okay? And not to beat a dead horse, but this saw needs an oiler upgrade in order to take advantage of the horsepower and the torque it has. So the same crank bearings, oil pump drive gear, all of this will work. Anything that works on the 461R as far as that goes. Clutch drum bearing, drive sprocket, washer, E-clip, oil pump worm gear, the oil pump. So what this means is you can use the 461R HO oil pump, and I'll put a link to my video in there about that, the complete pump, or you can buy the internals and install those yourself, and done this repeatedly. Also, the clutch side threads are the same as the 660, 066, 064, 046, 460, 461, 361. So this is a very proven setup. It's heavy duty, if you will. So you got the crank bearings, the oiler, the clutch, everything associated with that is very much proven. So I wanted to put that in there, and when we get to the point that we're splitting cases and changing out bearings, know that if you have the tools to work on the aforementioned saws, that you can work on the 400. 362, 361, 461R, it's all the same on the drive side. We're going to get to the flywheel side in just a minute. Pulling the flywheel now, using the proper tool. I'm going to get this off and away the flywheel. Okay. A few more things while we're doing this. We talked about the output shaft. The clutch side drive. This, obviously, the flywheel side. We're going to weigh the flywheel. But the flywheel side is the same as the 361, 460. The 660 will not work. 660 tools will not work on the 400. As far as pulling the crank goes. A note of interest. You may or may not already know this. This is a Husqvarna assembly tool for the 372 XP. This fits. It fits the 400, the 362, 361, 460, 046, 461, etc. So I showed you the 660 tool on the other side, and here's a Husqvarna tool on this side. So that's another thing to keep in mind when working on this series of saw. When you're gathering tools or figuring out what you need to do, you may already have what you need on hand. So keep that in mind. Let's weigh this flywheel. Now, I have the MS461 poly flywheel weights, and it is 12.5 ounces. So I have to get my scale set up for ounces here. Here's ounces, fluid ounces, milliliters, ounces. Okay, 0. Remember, the MS461 poly flywheel weighs 12.5 ounces. So here's the 400 flywheel. Let me get my pad out of the way where I get a weight here. Okay, it's 11 ounces. So the 461, let me get this where you can see it. The 461 poly flywheel is 12.5 ounces, and this is the 400 CM flywheel, and it weighs 11 ounces. Now you couple that with the lightweight piston, lightweight rings, the M-tronics, and your rotating mass is relatively lightweight to the cc's of the saw, 66.7, depending on where you look and who you ask. So those were some interesting details, in my opinion, maybe not to you. My camera footage of this particular plug may not have been good. So we were trying to get this in view right here earlier. So I was referring to it as a sock tie like you in the stores. Now this is the diagnostics plug. So if that's not there, you pop that plug, it goes off on the bench and it's lost forever. So I hope that's everything that may be of interest to you. And this is just a starting point. There's programming, there's downloads, there's versions. So there's a lot of variables within this particular series. So include the flywheel puller part number. Right there it is, 5910-890-4504. And this is a relatively inexpensive tool. If you're going to be working on this series of saw, I recommend using the correct tool to keep from tearing anything up any worse than you have to. Tip or trick, if you will, to all this, and it's the handlebar installation. And I'll try to capture this the best I can. So we've got the bar draped over the saw. I recommended to you to leave this on where the cylinder AV is at. Now, I refer to this as the star buffer or the star AV. You want to get that in first. And incidentally, that's the last thing that comes out as well. So you want to get that in first. That's your first step. Disassembly, after you unbolt all the screws, you slip this out and then work these things around, unbolt this, and your star buffer comes out last. So I'll demonstrate the reinstallation. Try to keep my head out of the way. So I just push that star portion in like so, and then this. And then we're basically in. It's just a matter of putting the screws in. I'll demonstrate that as well. The video may have run long, but I believe that it should help a lot of people. And that's the intention of this, is to help folks either that are repairing their own saw or people that just want to be educated and to know more about their saw. So even on this, just get everything started. Chain catcher. You saw how effortlessly that went together. Yeah, that's my opinion. And obviously the old stuff absolutely is easier, but there are certainly tricks to the new stuff as well. I did notice that there is the possibility of a factory tank guard. Absolutely. Would be interested to see that. While we're on the handlebar, some notes of interest also. I hear a lot of complaining about the plastic handlebar. So, having been privileged to watch a lot of the preliminary testing of this unit and the 362 as well, this tank breaks right here. Okay? These handlebars, the aluminum handlebars, the plastic is a shear point. The plastic handlebar is to save your tank. Sometimes the handlebar will save the tank, the structure of the handlebar will, but most of the time, with this particular model, and I've seen it with other models as well, the mounting holes tear out, which busts the tank and renders it useless. Now, these tanks actually break right in here. See a lot, right in this area. So if you get your saw stuck and you can help it at all, don't yank on it. And I've already talked about getting a tree on the airbox cover on this model. A lot of these newer saws, they're not as tough as the old ones. That's just that's the way things are right now. All right, so we've got the one cylinder screw up top here, and that's it. So you saw the ease at which we installed that handle. I don't think there's anything else. There was a lot of information to cover here. I think that's it. And obviously, folks will add to that in time. Oh yeah, I'm going to weigh all of the clutch covers. I've got 3 clutch covers. We'll compare those. Hang on just a minute. Weighing the clutch covers for the 400 C. What is available and what will fit. And by fit, I mean correctly. The captive nut cover that comes with it, with the chip deflector, 173 grams. Okay. The old original, like came with the 361, the early standard cover, 186 grams. 2 bar nuts, 217 grams. Okay. So 217 grams. Now let's go back to the other one, the 400 factory cover, 172 grams. Okay, so there's a considerable difference. The chip flow and chip management on this is not as good. It doesn't keep the dust and chips off of you as well as the old style, which is this one. And I'll hold them up to each other so you can see the difference in size. There's quite a bit. And when the saw is on its side, upside, so you're blocking a tree down, it's very noticeable. And then on to the big cover, which is a modified version, is used on the 661 and 441. We'll weigh it with the bar nuts. So just the cover. Of course, it's got the spike, chain catcher, and I do not have the rubber bumper in there with it. Let me get that. So here's the rubber bumper. We're at 307 grams right there, and the bar nuts, we're at 338 grams. So there's a huge weight difference there. But the chip management and flow, this puts that away from the operator very, very well. And I've used this cover a whole lot. But weight, do you want weight or do you want sawdust and chips in your face? So those are some options. This is very lightweight and looks neat, and the bar nuts stay with it. But this keeps that stuff off the operator. Now, that's my preferred if I'm not carrying it. If I'm carrying it, I like this one. Well, I think that's about it. That winds it up right there for inside the STIHL 400 CM or MS400 CM. Thank you for watching.